A wildlife camera in Patagonia caught bright glowing lights moving through the sky in the middle of nowhere. In Western Australia, people saw rainbow-colored lights forming triangles over the Midwest, and back in 1951, people in Lubbock, Texas saw blue-greenish lights zipping silently across the sky. These are disturbing lights in the sky no one can explain. So just back in January, a strange light was caught completely by accident by a wildlife camera in Patagonia. Around 12:22 in the morning, one of the University of Magallanes' camera traps snapped 3 photos just 2 seconds apart. The images show bright glowing lights moving downward through the sky in an area miles from any road or building. The cameras are meant to track wildcats, not UFOs. The team's been running about 65 of them across southern Chile, taking more than 365,000 photos over the years. Out of all that data, only 3 photos ever showed anything like this. The biologist running the project, Alejandro Kush, said the lights, quote, seem to approach and remain in front of the camera, dazzling it in a movement that appears to be descending. The photos were sent to Chile's Civil Aeronautics Directorate and to the La Serena UFO Museum. People threw around all kinds of ideas. Maybe it was a bug just crawling across the lens. Maybe it was some kind of natural plasma phenomenon. But none of it really fits. There were no storms or electrical activity that night, which basically rules out ball lightning. Researcher Rodrigo Bravo said there's no chance of a hoax. The cameras are part of a scientific project that runs automatically. So whatever those lights were, they're completely unexplained. In September, people all over Western Australia's Midwest started seeing strange lights in the sky. One of the first reports came from a father and son, Shane and Bradley Plain, who were driving when they spotted what they thought were stars at first. Shane said, "See that star up there? It's not looking right." And his son added that the lights were flashing like a rainbow and appeared to move in triangle formations. They weren't the only ones who saw it either. Perth Observatory said it got reports from all over the region, with everyone describing the same thing at the same time. Observatory spokesperson Matt Woods said he finds the whole thing very confusing, adding that he even checked flight radar to rule out aircraft but found nothing. The Department of Defense confirmed there were no military exercises happening that night. One local harbor master, Heathcliff Pimento, said it might have been atmospheric refraction, when layers of warm and cool air bend light from ships so it looks like it's floating in the sky, but Matt Woods wasn't convinced, saying, quote, "It would have to be a very large refraction for the whole Midwest to see it. I'd be very interested to know what it is." Back in August and September of 1951, people in Lubbock, Texas started seeing these glowing blue-greenish lights moving across the sky in perfect formation. On August 25th, 3 Texas Tech professors, A.G. Oberg, W.L. Ducker, and W.I. Robinson, were sitting in a backyard talking when around 20 to 30 bright lights flew overhead. They weren't meteors or planes. The professors said the lights were, quote, as bright as stars but larger, and they moved fast. Then minutes later, another set passed over. Word got around and more people began seeing them. One professor said the lights were about the size of a dinner plate and had a greenish blue, slightly fluorescent glow, and that there were, quote, about a dozen to 15 of these lights. It gave all of us an extremely eerie feeling. The group also saw one formation pass above thin clouds, which let them estimate the speed, over 600 miles per hour. A few days later, on August 30th, a Texas Tech freshman named Carl Hart Jr. managed to photograph the lights. He captured 5 shots of a V-shaped formation flying overhead. The Air Force analyzed them but couldn't come to a conclusion. In November of 2023, a guy named O'Brien Bird from Martin City, Montana, woke up around 4:30 in the morning and noticed a strange light shining through his window. When he stepped outside, he saw 4 bright points of light shaped like a cross, all surrounded by a pulsing glow. He said the whole thing was about 10 times the size of the largest star in the sky, and it wasn't moving or making a sound, and that it was, quote, definitely not a star and was not the moon. You could tell it was inside our atmosphere. He watched it for about 20 minutes before grabbing his spotting scope, basically a hunter's version of a telescope, to get a better look. Through the scope, he could see the lights changing color from red to blue to green. Then as he turned to go inside, he noticed another one further south, and then a third one, fainter, off to the west. But by the time he came back out, they were gone. Apparently, he's not the only one seeing weird stuff in the sky out there. A woman named Mickey Rabida said she's been spotting these lights for years. You could see them almost every night if you know where to look. They're colorful and they spin really fast, she said. Out in southeastern Finland, there's a lake called Paasselkä. For hundreds of years, people have been seeing strange lights there. They call them the Paasselkä Devils. At night, glowing orbs appear over the water, floating or hovering. Sometimes they dart off if you try to follow them. Sometimes they just hang there. The first stories go back to the 1700s, long before anyone had electricity, when fishermen would swear they saw these balls of light dancing over the lake, crossing into the forest. The lights are usually white or blue. Sometimes they flash red or yellow, though. Some people say they flicker like flames. Others have seen a single orb just hanging in the air for minutes. One tale goes that a light followed a fisherman back to shore, almost like it was alive. The lake also sits in an old meteor crater, which might explain why the area feels so off. Some say these lights are the spirits of people who drowned. Others call them demons trapped in the crater. Out in the Kutch Desert in India, there's a phenomenon called Chir Batti, or ghost lights. People have been seeing them for generations. At night, strange glowing orbs appear over the salt flats, hovering in place, darting sideways, splitting into smaller lights, and usually disappearing as suddenly as they appear. They can be white, blue, or red, and people say they look like nothing you'd normally see in the sky. The lights are mostly reported by herders and villagers who spend long nights out on the flats. They often describe the lights as hovering low over the ground, sometimes moving along the horizon for minutes without any sound. They appear in areas far from any roads. So there's no obvious cause like lights from a car, and the desert is flat and dry, which of course rules out swamp gases. On the night of March 8, 1994, people all over West Michigan saw something really strange in the sky. Calls were flooding 911. Reports of glowing red, white, and blue lights hovering over towns like Holland, Grand Haven, and Muskegon. In the end, more than 300 people came forward, including police officers, reporters, and a meteorologist who saw the objects on radar. Lee Lamberts, a sports writer, was one of the first to notice them. After hearing a low humming near Holland High School, he looked up and saw a, quote, long row of red and white lights. They were about 100 feet off the ground, moving slowly before disappearing over the gym. About 20 miles north, Cindy Pravada saw 4 glowing white orbs, which she described being the size of the full moon, hovering just above her tree line. It wasn't helicopters, she said. It was nothing else that I could explain. And Jack Bushung, the meteorologist on duty that night, couldn't believe what he was seeing. When he checked the radar, he could see strange objects shifting around in odd ways, going up and down, side to side, sometimes disappearing, then reappearing over Lake Michigan. I knew I was looking at something highly unusual, not just a plane, he said. To this day, no one knows what those lights were. Back in December, people in Surrey, BC started noticing something really weird in the sky over Cloverdale. Melissa Knight posted on the local Facebook group, "What is happening in the skies over in Cloverdale this morning?" along with some photos showing bright, multicolored lights. Some people joked about aliens, others wondered if the lights were from nearby cannabis greenhouses, which apparently can cause a lot of light pollution. The most common explanation people floated was light pillars, an optical effect where ice crystals in the air bend light. One person commented, "That's a thing that happens in other places. I've never heard of it here though." Even with the possible explanations, the lights looked strange enough that a lot of people were just staring, taking pictures, trying to figure out what they were seeing. There's still no official answer. In 1950, before the launch of the first man-made satellite, astronomers at the Palomar Observatory in California were working on a massive survey of the night sky. But in 2021, a team of researchers re-examining old images from the survey found something strange. On a single photo plate taken on April 12, 1950, 9 distinct tiny star-like points of light appeared in a nearly straight line. They look exactly like a group of objects orbiting Earth, catching the sun's reflection. The telescope took multiple photos that night using different color filters, but the lights only showed up on one photograph taken with the red filter. They were completely invisible on the blue filter photo, taken just 30 minutes earlier, and they didn't appear on any other photo taken days later. This means the objects had to appear in the sky, shine brightly enough to register as a clear dot during the 50-minute exposure, and then vanish all in a window of less than an hour. They acted just like satellites, but the world didn't launch its first satellite until 1957. Researchers also confirmed they weren't meteors, which would have left streaks. They also weren't distant stars or galaxies. Those would be visible in other photos. So to this day, we still don't know what these 9 lights were. And the Phoenix Lights incident is one of the most widely reported mass UFO sightings in history. On the night of March 13, 1997, thousands of people across Arizona and parts of Nevada saw what was later dubbed the Phoenix Lights. First, a huge, silent, V-shaped craft was seen flying low in the sky. Witnesses, including families, police, and Arizona Governor Fife Symington, said it was massive, up to a mile wide, blocking out the stars. Then, later that night, people saw a string of reddish-orange lights hovering over the Sierra Estrella Mountains. The Air Force said it was just flares from a training exercise, while they provided a press conference with an officer in a ridiculous alien costume to dismiss the whole incident. The two events described by witnesses, the giant flying object and the distant hovering lights, those were clearly different things, and the official explanation never satisfied the thousands of people who saw something that night. All that said, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.